prazer estar com todos vocês. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. I'd first like to say that I came back from New York very inspired after the UN Climate Summit. For the first time, I think we saw the UN meeting on a high level just before the General Assembly, and that was preceded by a major demonstration of hundreds of thousands of people in the streets of New York, and also in the streets of over 100 countries throughout the globe. I think there is political momentum which is building up for the upcoming events next year and this year in Lima and Paris. We're also very much pressed by the signs of extreme weather events. And in Brazil, we just had this year a record drought in São Paulo, which is ongoing, and a record flood in the Amazon along the Madeira River. And this is also seen in many other parts of the world with equal seriousness and signs that we must act now. The upcoming event in Lima offers a fantastic opportunity to move this agenda forward. First, because it's being considered an Amazon COP, because Peru has a significant part of its territory in the Amazon. And RED is very much high in the agenda. And I had a meeting with Minister Pulgar just a couple of weeks ago, and he asked us to provide feedback. So there is a direct opportunity to provide feedback to the Minister of Peru, who is going to be the president of the COP. So I'd like to invite you all to provide some materials for that. We should take into consideration the case of Copenhagen. So Paris is set to be deadline for a number of negotiations under the UNFCCC. But we should not leave everything for Paris. So that puts more pressure and more importance on Lima. We have to move forward in Lima so that we don't leave everything for Copenhagen. And especially in the agenda of RED, which has had a lot of progress in the previous COP in Warsaw, I believe that we have to take advantage of what we have now going on in the preparations for Lima. And in particular, I see that there is a lot of pressure to focus on the energy sector, which of course is the most important one in terms of emissions. But the energy sector is not the answer to all the issues. The AFOLU sector is about 25% of all global emissions. And if all pledges are fulfilled, we are still above the maximum targets that we can have for 2020. So it's very important to have the AFOLU sector given appropriate emphasis. And by that, I put an emphasis not only on RED, but also in other initiatives at the landscape level, which also considers agriculture and agroforestry. We have to make the case very clearly that investing in biological sequestration in all forms is much more attractive than many other options that we have in other sectors of the economy. The cost is much lower. It's between $1 and $27 per ton. This is less than many of the other alternatives which are being considered, especially carbon capture and storage, CCS, which is receiving a lot of funding and a lot of attention. Brazil, just to put that in perspective, has reduced its emissions for more than 4 billion tons or 4 gigatons of CO2 equivalent through reduction of deforestation in the Amazon only. But we have not received compensation for that. And there is a very distinct feeling in the international discussions that in many of the models that are being presented, the forestry and land use sector is considered to become carbon neutral by 2050. And that is taken for granted as if it was not necessary in investment. So there is a strong need to put together evidence on the challenges that we have to make the forestry sector and the agricultural sector, the whole landscape, carbon neutral, or at least less of a source of carbon than it can be otherwise, and eventually a sink of carbon. But the message that we have to put together is that this has a cost, and unless we invest significantly in improving technology, in disseminating technology, and in financing, we cannot have this set of options, which is very attractive, transformed into success stories. And we also need to make the case that investing in landscape level solutions is essential for global sustainability. And this includes not only carbon budgets, but also biological conservation, which is essential to provide environmental services, and rainfall regimes, which are so dependent on trees, so dependent on forests. So we have to make this case even more stronger. So I think it's important to have coalitions such as the one which is organizing this event, team together so that we have enough political momentum in the run-up to Lima. I would like to close with 5 points. I believe we have to slay the myths. We have to make sure that the arguments that are being put in the discussions to prevent forests and landscape level solutions from becoming a central part of the agenda, we have to overcome those myths. Myth number 1, that carbon of biological sequestration and storage, which I would like to call vivo carbon. Vivo carbon is based on weak data. It's not true. Vivo carbon is based on strong data. That is one myth that we have to overcome. The second one is that vivo carbon solutions are hard to implement, are complicated. No one really knows. Maybe trees are good, maybe trees are not. It's wrong. We have to slay this myth once again. Number 3, vivo carbon are hard to implement and complicated. We have to show stories which are very simple. Here I'd just like to show one case of Africa where it is possible to have agriculture together with savanna trees, acacia in this case, which are dry in the rainy season and thus allow corn to be grown in the rainy season. And when it's the dry season, then these trees put up leaves. So it's a fantastic case of combining tree crops with annual crops. Number 4, vivo carbon are not economically feasible. That's another myth that needs to be combated with hard data. Number 5, that there is a conflict between vivo carbon and food production. The example I just gave you is one example, but there are many other examples where we can have forests and agroforestry systems which have high carbon intensity and at the same time increase crop yield either directly or indirectly by securing vital environmental services. So I would like to close this message and this presentation making a special call for us to get together, put up a document so that we can put more pressure in the negotiation process which is going to take place in Lima. All the best. Bye-bye.